Hey fellas. So, I haven't drafted in a while because I've been kind of broke and all, and bills and blah blah blah. You know how it is. Stuff happens. Life sucks, blah blah blah. So, I figured since I haven't put anything up in a while, I'd, do another Qawamitous deck. As some of you may know, the last Qawamitous deck was my Battle Cattle deck, my Minotaur deck, sometimes referred to as Counter Tour. Red, blue, splash white, a horrible, horrible deck that just locks the opponent out of the game and then smashes his face. It's a beautiful thing. Anyway. The deck I'd like to talk about today is the Fungus of Speed and Time. Now, this is a deck I've had for a long time. I've done a lot of tweaks to it. I've been playing Thallid decks since, like, 94, 95. Yeah. Sometime around then. So, it's something I have a lot of experience with. Now, some of you are looking at this, it's like, what, are you running blue-green? I'm like, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, some might think black-green, or maybe even black-white-green, because there's the pallid mycoderm in white, and the... I can't remember what it was called off the top of my head, but there's a white version of Elvish Farmer in Time Spiral Block as well as a Chaos Shift into white. Excuse me. And then, of course, black, you got the... what are they called? The Death Spore Thallid, I believe it was, and the... Thelon of Havenwood, who you can pay green-black and remove Spore counter from a Thallid to give saplings +1/+1 till end of turn, something like that, blah 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 blah. And I don't use the black or the white because they're not terrifyingly valuable to Thalids. They're really not. I mean, yeah, there's a couple of decent cards in there, but for the most part, blue is a better enabling color. Originally, I decided on that because a Thallid deck's overall biggest weakness is creature sweepers. That is, Wrath of God and stuff like that. Wrath of God, Day of Judgment, Planar Cleansing, Damnation, Plague Wind, stuff like that. Or even, heaven forbid, Earthquake. Earthquake will do horrible things to a Thallid deck. Ugh. Even Tremor will set you back a ways. But, so anyways, so I figured the best way to defend against that, counter magic. I've got 2 copies of the classic counterspell, Tempest printing, 4 miscalculations, colorless and a blue, counter target spell unless its controller pays 2 colorless, and you can cycle it for 2 colorless. That is, you can pay 2 colorless mana, to discard it and draw a card. This is an activated ability of a card in hand, so it's really difficult to counter the cycle ability. That is, counter spelling, different story. That can be countered normally. And mostly as an experiment, I've got 3 fuel for the cause in the deck. 2 double blue instant counter target spell, then proliferate. That is, you can any number of creatures or players that with counters on them, you may add another counter of a type already on them. It was introduced in Mirrodin Besieged. No, the proliferate mechanic goes before that, but yeah, the card itself is from Mirrodin Besieged. It's in there. It was originally in there to go along with stuff like poison counters and neg1 counters. I use it with spore counters. All well and good. All well and good. Now, of course, with counter magic, one of the problems with counter magic is you have to get it right then and there. Once it's resolved, it's done. You can't do anything about it. And that's great. And, you lose your creatures, blah, 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 blah. That's a pain in the butt. Your opponent drops a threat or some kind of a lockdown, and it gets past your counters at an inopportune time. That's a problem. That's why I have a pair of capsize in here. Colorless double blue instant. Buyback for 3 colorless. Return target permanent to owner's hand. And if you pay the buyback cost when you cast it, when the spell resolves, it returns to your hand. That's nice. It's very nice. Now, all sorts of decisions I could have made for this deck. I made a few. Admittedly, I have a couple of suboptimal choices in the deck, to be perfectly honest. Like, I'm using 2 normal Thallids when I could be using 4 Utopium icons. The normal Thallids are mostly there for nostalgia purposes, even though I'm using time-shifted printings of them, because they look nicer. And they use the good illustration of Thallid. For those that don't know, most of the commons in Fallen Empires, the set where the Thallids originally showed up, most of the commons had 3 or 4 different illustrations. And there were a bunch of different illustrations for Thallid. That's the one I liked. I really liked it. And so I got 2 Thallids. For those that don't know, your basic Thallid mechanic, during your upkeep, it gets a spore counter. Remove 3 spore counters, put a 1/1 Saproling token into play under your control. All well and good. So I got 2 Thallids. They're 1/1 for green, basic Thallid ability. 2 Utopium icons. So a 0/2 for green with the basic Thallid ability, plus it lets you sacrifice Saprolings for 1 mana of color of choice. That's not actually bad. It's really good if you're, like, for example, tapped out and you need mana for a counterspell. Yeah, I'll jump to Saproling tokens for a counterspell to not suffer a board wipe all damn day. I'll do that. Absolutely. Absolutely. 3 Thallid Shell Dwellers. It's a 0/5 defender for a colorless and a green with Thallid mechanic. It's a great blocker, and it does what I needed to do. It churns out Saprolings. You know? Psychotrope Thallid, 2 colorless and a green for a 1/1 basic Thallid ability, plus you can pay 1 colorless and sacrifice. English. I can speak it. Try that again. I can pay 1 colorless and sacrifice a Saproling token to draw a card, because drawing cards is pretty boss. Two Thallid Germinators. It's 2 colorless and a green for a 2/2 basic Thallid ability. Plus, I can sacrifice Saprolings to give target creature +1/+1 till end of turn. That's pretty nice. Now, some might be asking, once again, why aren't you running the Death Spore Thallid? Because that dude is reusable removal. And you're right, he can be. Or, heaven forbid it, in lieu of that, why would I not be running the classic Thorn Thallid, which is a colorless and double green for a 2/2, that instead of removing 3 counters for a Saproling, you remove 3 counters for 1 damage to target creature or player. And the reason why is this deck does not win by doing direct damage to the opponent or to his creatures. And I'll get to that in a little bit. 2 Sporloth Ancients. It's a 3 and double green for a 4/4. At the beginning of your upkeep, he gets a spore counter. Creatures you control have removed 2 spore counters and put a 1/1 Saproling token, blah, 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 blah. So basically, he makes churning out Saproling tokens faster by making it cost fewer spore tokens. That's pretty nice. That's pretty nice. Now, Spore Sower Thallid. 2 colorless, double green. I got a full playset in here. He's a 4/4. He does not quite have the normal Thallid ability. He does have the ability to remove 3 spore counters from himself to make a Saproling token. All well and good. During your upkeep, he does not put a spore counter on himself. During your upkeep, he puts a spore counter on every fungus you control. And I'll get back to him in a minute. Alright, a couple minutes, but whatever. I'll get back to him, because he does funk. Paradox Haze. This is the best enabler card that ever printed for Thallids. And I say this with complete and total honesty. I mean, I've tried other stuff. Thallid of Havenwood is not really much of a Thallid enabler, unless you intend to just try and overrun with brute force, which I can't really recommend. Okay. Sorry about that, getting distracted by sounds in the hallway. I was going somewhere with this. That's right, folks. This is all off the cuff, as per usual, so there is no blooper. Well, there sort of is a blooper reel. First time I tried to shoot this video, the battery was low, and I'm like, oh, crap. So I just had to stop, and, you know, it was like, maybe like a minute and a half in, blah, 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 blah. Whatever. Whatever. So there's no real blooper reels to this stuff. Not at all. So anyways, and I've tried other Thallid enablers, as I was saying. I'm glad I was able to pick that thread back up. Oh, look, thread! No. But, for example, there's this old card from Fallen Empires called Fungal Bloom. It's double green to cast, and you can pump, it's an enchantment, you pump double green into it to put a spore counter on target fungus. All well and good. It speeds up, you know, it speeds up your Thallids a little bit. And then in Urz's block, there was Gaia's Cradle, which you tapped for an amount of green mana equal to the number of creatures you controlled. That could cause you to churn out saplings pretty fast. I mean, really fast. At the time. This is better. Paradox Haze, 2 colors and a blue, enchant player. At the beginning of enchanted player's first upkeep, he gets another upkeep after the current. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So, hey look, at the beginning of my first upkeep, so I've got 2 of these on me. At the beginning of my first upkeep, I get 2 bonus upkeeps that go off after this one. That's pretty boss. That's pretty boss. Stuff that synergizes with the extra upkeep. Obviously, not just the saplings, but Ancestral Vision does not have a casting cost at all. You can't cast it from hand. Period. Statement is, you just can't. But it does have a suspend cost of 4. You pay blue, and it's exiled 4 time counters. During your upkeep, you remove a time counter. When the last time counter comes off, cast it Fable. And then you cast it. Yay! Target player draws 3 cards. Hello! 3 cards. 3. Search for Tomorrow. Hard cost of 2 and a green. Suspends 2 for a single green. You search your library for a basic land, put it into play, shuffle. That's not bad. That generally means to say, for example, I've only got 1 in here too, which really doesn't feel right. It really doesn't. But the idea is you play this on turn. If you play this on turn 1, you know, first turn forest, search for Tomorrow, fine, suspended. 2. Next turn, remove a counter. It's got 1 counter left on it. You play another land. Blah 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 blah. Next turn, you remove the counter. You get another land on the board. Maybe you play another one. Hopefully on turn 3, you're up to 4 land. That's pretty nice. Actually, looking at that makes me wonder if I should just replace it at this point, because it doesn't really do a whole hell of a lot of good with just 1 of them. You know, I mean, it's nice, but just 1, really, really. Really? Really. So, anyways. So, followed footsteps from the original Ravnica block, from the first set in it, Ravnica. 3 colors. I've got 2 copies here. I think I only own 2 copies. 3 colors, double blue, enchantment, aura, enchant creature. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a token copy of enchanted creature into play under your control. That sounds pretty spiffy. There have been times while playing a version of this deck on Magic Online, I threw that on like an opponent's Fire Main Angel, and next thing you know, there's like 7 Fire Main Angels on the board. 2 of them are my opponent's, and the other 5 are mine. Oh, that was glorious. My opponent laughed his ass off. It was pretty cool. I mean, honestly, no, it is really cool when your opponent sits there and goes like, "Alright, dude, that's just funny. I'm getting my butt handed to me. That's funny." So, I told you I was going to get back to the Spore Sower Thallid. Spore Sower Thallid with followed footsteps on him. And I've actually pulled this off before. Let's say I've got 2 Paradox Haze on the board, right? Cool. Upkeep number 1. 2 Paradox Hazes trigger, followed footsteps triggers, Spore Sower Thallid triggers. Let's say this is all I've got out for non-land permanents at this time, right? Let's just say for sake of argument. So, I choose what order these all go on to the stack in. I'll put the Spore Sower's ability on the stack first, with the Followed Footsteps' triggered ability on top of it. And the Paradox Haze, it doesn't matter where I put them. It really doesn't. Not at this point. Actually, it does not matter at all. As long as I get the upkeeps, that's what's important. So I'm going to get 2 bonus upkeeps. Upkeep number 1. I get a token copy of Spore Sower Thallid. Yay! And then his ability triggers. Put a spore counter on each fungus you control. 1, 2. Yeah. So I've got. All right. So that's where I'm sitting right now, right? Looks good. Second upkeep. Second upkeep. I've got Followed Footsteps triggering and 2 Spore Sowers triggering. I'm going to put the 2 Spore Sower triggers onto the stack first, and then the Footsteps trigger on top of it. Footsteps triggers. You know, let's just return these right side up, so just so you know. You know the one with the Followed Footsteps on is the one that is the original, and these are supposed to be tokens, that's fine. So, Followed Footsteps triggers, I get another Spore Sower. These 2 guys, their triggers now resolve. His trigger resolves. 1 token on each of them. His trigger resolves. 1 token, 1 spore counter on each of them. This is starting to look ugly, guys. Next upkeep. That's right, because I had 2 Paradox Hazes on the board, right? 3 Spore Sower triggers, and the Followed Footsteps. Put all the Spore Sowers on first, then the Footsteps. There's another token Spore Sower. I've got 3 of these guys triggering. 1, 1, 1, 1. Second one triggers. 1, 1, 1, 1. Third one. Third trigger resolves. 1, 1, 1, 1. Now I hit my main phase. Yeah, this is a deck that requires some bookkeeping. Normally I use dice for this. Back in the day when I played Thallid decks literally all the time, like pretty much 5 out of 6 games I played I was running a Thallid deck, so I got really good at moving dice fast. Okay, so where was I with this? Oh yeah, Followed Footsteps, 2 Paradox Haze, 1 Spore Sower, token Spore Sower, token Spore Sower, token Spore Sower, crap ton of spore counters on them. Now I worked out how this is supposed to go. Okay, check this out, guys. 1, 2, 3 spore tokens on the spore counters on the token Spore Sower. That's a sapling token. That's a sapling token. 3 off of him. He's got 2 left. That's okay. Sapling token. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 off of him. That's 2 sapling tokens. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 off of him as well. That's 2 more sapling tokens. Okay, so in one beginning of turn step, you know, from the beginning of my first upkeep to the beginning of my first main phase, I've gone from whatever land I had and other permanents I had. 1 Spore Sower with a Followed Footsteps and 2 Paradox Haze. I went from that to 4 Spore Sowers, 1 with 2 Spore token counters on it, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Sapling tokens. That's nuts. That is absolutely nuts. And yeah, I have a big stack of over 20 sapling tokens over here. Anywho, like I said, you know, Paradox Haze does nutty stuff for this deck. Just nutty stuff. Now, some may ask, what are you going to do with all those saplings and blah, blah, blah? I mean, shouldn't you try to overrun the opponent, yada, yada, so forth and whatnot? Absolutely. Now, one of the things you have to keep in mind, though, this is a control deck. Opposition. 2 colors, double blue enchantment. Tap an untapped creature you control to tap target artifact, creature, or land. As I was saying, yeah, battery issues, blah, blah, blah. This is a great video, guys. I'm having so many problems with it. No, really. Anyways, yeah, untapped target creature. Untapped. Okay, let's try that again. Tap target creature to tap target artifact, creature, or land. We'll tap an untapped creature you control, blah, 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 blah. Now, since that's an activation cost, the activation cost is making a creature you have that's untapped, tapped. What's funky about that is you're not giving the creature a tap ability. This has a cost of, yeah, make a creature you control that isn't tapped. So Summoning Sickness doesn't come into play with it. So, for example, tokens that you generate at this turn can be used to tap stuff down. That's nice. Now, some people sit there with like, okay, well, what can you do with that? Well, I can do things like, hey, I made a bunch of tokens, pass turn. Hey, during your upkeep, tap your lands. Artifact, creature, or land is what you can tap. So you can deny them if they have multiple colors, you can deny them of a color. If they have creatures that you don't want swinging your direction, you can tap those down. There are so many things you can do with this. It's funky. It's awesome. It's a strong card. As you can see originally from Urza's block, it was reprinted in 7. I have a 7th edition printing right here. I've got all sorts of cards that have like cycled in and out of the deck a little bit. You know that. I've got a pair of German. I can't remember the name. Not Germinator. Can't be Germinator. Yeah, it is Germinator. Okay. Brain fart. A German Thallid Germinator. Germinator. Deutsch, actually. And a German Shell Dweller, which I picked up while I was in Germany. Imagine that. Original Fallen Empire's Thallid. Here's the Fallen Empire symbol. Coincidentally, that was also from before they started color-coding expansion symbols. They started that in Urza's block. No, I'm sorry. They started that in Exodus, the last part of Tempest block. Urza's block is when they started putting foils in tournament legal sets. If I recall correctly, the first set with foils was actually unglued, which was not tournament legal. Anyways, putting that stuff aside, my mana base, I've got a Temple of Mystery. That's a recent addition, as you may guess. 2 Hinterland Harbors, also fairly recent. A Yavimaya Coast, which is a blue-green Pain Land, original Apocalypse printing. A Misty Rainforest. Yay! 3 Terramorphics, one of which I'm going to junk because I was thinking to myself when I was going over this deck, don't I have, like, a Shockland I could put in here? And like, yeah, I do. So I'm going to junk one of those expansions for a Shockland. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 forests, and I want to say this is 8 islands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, 8 islands. For those that don't know, this right here is an actual unglued island. It looks nice. It's funky. It's funk. This is a fun deck. I've been tinkering with it, playing around with it for ages and ages. I mentioned earlier the Fungal Bloom Gaia's Cradle combo, which I used to use before, you know, Paradox Hazes came around. That combo was cut completely for Paradox Haze. Completely. Because Paradox Haze is just so much stronger. Stupid stronger. Another thing the deck used to have that has been cut is I used to have Skull of Worm and Second Chance. Now, some people don't know these cards. Skull of Worm used to be like a baby card for me. You know, I used to try to go out of my way to find ways to use it. Skull of Worm is a 3-drop artifact. You pay 5 colorless and tap it to take an enchantment from your graveyard and put it in your hand. Now, that can be pretty saucy, because there's some interesting enchantments out there with sacrifice abilities. Or, you know, that in the course of their normal usage are supposed to go to the graveyard. So, yeah, Skull of Worm's kind of useful for recycling those almost on demand. Second Chance is very similar to some of the Fateful Hour enchantments and such from... I want to say Fateful Hour was a Avacyn block mechanic, or was it from... Yeah, it was Avacyn block mechanic. Anyways, Second Chance, originally from Urza's block, was, I want to say it was a colorless and a blue, or 2 colorless and a blue. It was an enchantment, and it said, during your upkeep, if you have 5 life or less, sacrifice Second Chance, take an extra turn after this one. And the way that would work is before M10 rules. Now, some people who've started playing in the past, like 3 years, may not know about this. There used to be this lovely rule called Mana Burn. That is, at the end of each step and phase, your mana pool would empty just as it does now. But what was different about this is that for every point of mana in your mana pool that you didn't spend, that was emptied at the end of the phase, you'd take 1 damage. So what I'd do is, it's like, okay, do I have enough mana to get Second Chance back from the graveyard and recast it? Yes. Yes, I do. Okay, fine. Here's Second Chance. End of your turn, I'm going to put a bunch of mana in my pool. I'm going to Mana Burn down to 5. Upkeep. Second Chance goes away. I get an extra turn after this one. I pay the mana. I get Second Chance back into hand. I replay it. Unless you have the ability to kill me at instant speed, I now have a near infinite turn loop going. I can keep taking turn after turn after turn after turn, and eventually I'm gonna get enough saplings or this way to just overwhelm you. Just straight up overwhelm you. Turn after turn after turn after turn. And so what? Eventually, okay, I'm using like 8 mana to do this a turn. Eventually, I'm going to draw into more land and have the ability to do other stuff while I'm doing this. This could get ugly. This could get very ugly, especially once again, if I've got like a Gaia's Cradle on the board. If the only thing I'm using blue mana for is to cast the brain fart. The Second Chance, yeah. The only thing I'm using blue mana for is to cast Second Chance. I've got blue mana available. If I've got a Gaia's Cradle out and I'm generating more creature tokens, then my mana base is expanding. So pretty soon, that 8 mana I'm blowing to take turn after turn after turn is going to seem like nothing. It's like, oh, 8 mana? What do I care? Seriously? Hey, look, during my first main phase, I'm going to tap Gaia's Cradle for like 15 mana. I'm going to use 5 of it to pull Second Chance back to my hand. I've got 11 floating. I'm going to use 2 colorless and a blue to replay Second Chance. The green mana is being used for colorless, so I've got 9 green mana left. I'm going to use 1 to play a Thallid, and the other 8 are going into Fungal Bloom to put 4 spore counters on my Fungus. And then I make another sapling. Whatever. I don't care. So it could work. Unfortunately, you know, with M10 they removed Mana Burn from the rules, so I could not reliably get myself down to 5 life. So I ended up cutting the combo entirely. You know, in retrospect, you know, getting rid of Mana Burn, it wasn't the most intuitive rule in the world, but it had been around for a long time, so a lot of us weren't particularly happy about it. If you look through my videos, find my Landless deck. That's a deck that back in the day used to routinely win with Mana Burn because it gives everyone double green mana at the beginning of their first main phase for each Eladamri's Vineyard or Magus of the Vineyard I had in play. And so people would be sitting there, especially people playing like White Meanie or Mono Black, they'd be sitting there staring down the barrel of like 6 to 8 mana that they had absolutely no use for. And they'd be like, yeah, when I end my first main phase, I'm taking like 6 damage. And mind you, of course, this would make me a target. Oh, such a target. But anyways, yeah, the elimination of mana burn stopped those kinds of stopped what the landless deck did with killing people like that. The elimination of mana burn stopped me from using the second chance combo in this deck because I couldn't reliably do it anymore. I mean, how else am I gonna get myself down to 5 life other than, you know, just taking hits I really couldn't afford to take sometimes. The only other possibility was to start running Thorn Thallids in quantity and start shooting myself with them. That's not terribly efficient. At all. So, yeah, there's that. There's that. So anyways, yeah, there's some Magic content for you guys. It's a fun deck. It's a nice deck. I enjoy the hell out of it. It doesn't even use a lot of terribly expensive cards either. I mean, yes, a lot of these cards are out of print. Seriously out of print. But, yay. I mean, you can do this with a pretty budget mana base. Like I said, I mean, okay, granted the breeding pools are expensive. Terramorphics are not. Other than that, Misty Rainforest you don't really need. Yavimaya Coasts are actually kind of cheap. The Painlands are actually kind of cheap these days. The Hinterland Harbors are maybe like, what, $3 to $4 a pop? Maybe a little more than that? I'd have to look it up, to be honest. Temple of Mystery is probably worth a couple bucks. I'm not 100% certain what that's going for. I'd have to look it up. I haven't really checked the prices on any of these new comes into play tap, scry, dual land thingies. But whatever. Like I said, most of the cards in this deck are actually pretty cheap, and you don't really need true dual lands to run it. You can get away with Terramorphics and basic lands. You can easily do a budget version of this deck if you want to recreate it. Stop copying my deck! But yeah. It's a great little deck. It's fun as all hell to play. Don't play it if you don't have a bunch of dice hanging around to use as spore counters. Don't play it if you don't have stuff handy to use as token creatures. This deck really, really requires that stuff. I mean, seriously requires it. And there's no two ways about that. It's just needed. I mean, and I know it's needed. I mean, look at this stuff, guys. I'm sitting here with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 19, 20, 21, 22 Saproling tokens right there. And there have been times when it was not enough. It just wasn't. Yeah. You know? Yeah. So there's that. So, there it is, guys. There's the Fungus of Speed and Time. It's a fun deck. It's a great little deck. Like I said, it's easy to do a budget version of this deck. That's where you were hiding. And heck are you? Okay, hey, look at that. Something I use as a divider for it. Fungus of Speed and Time. Yeah. Yeah. It's a great little deck. I have loads of fun with it. I don't play it that often because, like many of my decks, it's a horrific bastard to play against. Because once it gets going, good luck. Speaking of bastard decks, I got another one in here that I'm probably going to shoot a video about right after this, just so I have a backlog of stuff I can do, you know? You know? Alrighty. I'll talk to you guys later, or whatever, if I talk to you at all. Yeah, I'm not going to talk to you. You're, whatever. Okay, be good, fellas. Stay safe.